to start again. Everybody take their seats, please.
Donnie, you would come up and hold it, please. I'll do the easy one first. Just the update on the broadcasting for council meetings. I don't have a whole lot more to report, but I will tell you that in my meeting last week with Lindenwood, Jerry Bladdock is putting together a meeting with myself and a few of our staff to get together with some of his staff and with representatives from the St. Charles campus who have worked with Charter Communication on their program that they have for broadcasting over at St. Charles campus. He feels very certain that they're going to be able to work with us and help us. Their program is going to be up and running by August of the new school year in the fall. So while that doesn't start anything May 1st, but it would take time, he feels very comfortable that we're going to be able to work some things out that are going to be to our benefit cost-wise by working with them. And also this will give the students an opportunity for some programming or filming or whatever, and keep it, and keep us less, whether it be cameras here and they take them. However, we're going to sit down and talk about how they do it at St. Charles, because they do it regularly, and then we're going to talk about what our possibilities are here. He thinks it's going to be the most economic way for us, and they're excited about being a part of it. So that is ongoing. I'll keep you posted. We're going to be meeting on that sometime probably in the next 30 days or less, and we'll get moving on that. So I think it's about 2 weeks, I think, to be scheduled. So that's the update on that.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Budget drafts. Jamie, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. In your packets, you were given another draft of the general fund, a draft of every other fund here at the city, except for the police and fire pensions, which I will be getting to you soon. What I also included, there was a couple requests at the last meeting. Alderman Kagan requested that the budget kind of in a format that shows the percentage change from 12 to 13 be included, so that was in the packet. Alderman Carpenter asked for some pie charts, so I'm not very artistic, but to the best of my ability, I did pie charts of the general fund expense by department. Sorry, not very mild. General fund expenses by department for fiscal year 11-12 that we're currently in, as well as the next budget year. As you can see, they almost mirror each other. That breakdown doesn't change very drastically from year to year. What I plan to do tonight, I know you guys haven't had copies of at least all the other funds except for the general fund, but for a few days. It is another month before anything has to be voted on by the Finance Committee and subsequently the Council. So what I want to do tonight is just briefly go through some more highlights, or I guess the high points of the general fund and the other large funds. I'm not going to go through the small individual funds. Of course, if you have questions, feel free to contact me anytime. But I'm going to hit some of the main points for especially the general fund. And then I'm going to ask that we select a time and date for the public hearing for the budget in April. So let me get started with the general fund.
Before you get into details, I was a little frustrated that there were no goals along with this. That it was not, we're going to work towards central purchasing, that it was not, we're going to buy the GIS system. It seems to be, we're just holding our own without trying to set it in direction.
I think there's some in here about the GIS. There's a part-time GIS person plan, and there's some money put aside to work with the county at getting the licensing and work on that at the beginning. It's a beginning. Like I said, we have a lot of things going on. That is something that we listen to staff and to some of you, and that's something that we're working into this budget. But
well, will there be goals cities as part of the whole presentation to the public?
Usually it's just numbers. If you guys wanna write out goals or something, that's up to you.
Because I was looking at several other cities today, and some of them have 5 and 6 pages with very precise bullet points of, this is what we want to do.
I think, first of all, I think in the near future, next year, we get our comp plan going and we start getting input about direction of the city and different goals and philosophies, if that's what the desire is, but we're gonna have to start long before now, because we're really less than 2 months, what, about 6 weeks away from we have to adopt this budget.
I understand,
So we
and
keep going.
I have to say, as a new person, I kind of was waiting for that to come from you. I was
Well,
waiting for
it's
you
the first I've heard of it, and we've not written into goals. We've had things we've worked towards, and there's been discussion, but we've not had them in writing for as a specific goal. In my 15 years on this council, I don't recall any written goals. Certainly, we're working towards some of the things we talked about. GIS is one example
Yeah,
that she's gonna hit.
I've got to hit tonight. Okay. First is the summary page that shows the year-to-year balance in the general fund, kind of the breakdown of expenses and revenues. Overall, the projected revenues for the general fund are gonna be up about 5%, or that's what we're projecting, which really equates to the $1.1 million addition of the 0.25% home rule sales tax that was passed several months ago. It should be noted that there are no other fee increases this year in the budget, no trash increases, no sewer increases, no other increases. The sales tax that I'm projecting to end the year at is obviously one of our biggest numbers in our general fund. Is actually up almost 4% from what we had budgeted for 12. I think we budgeted last year about 5.9 million. We should hit right over 6.1 this year. I'm budgeting a conservative 1.5% increase for next year. If trends keep up the way that they're going now, we should see well over that, but again, I want to be conservative. Utility tax has been down. It's another one of our large revenue numbers in the general fund. It has been down this year, mainly due to the mild summer and winter. Obviously, the utility taxes that we receive off of that are based off of the citizens' bills. So when the bills are lower because of the mild weather, our taxes lower.
It's a good news, bad news. We've kept our salt in the barn, and we've had less overtime, but the utility tax we saw has taken a dip, so it's one of those things that just the way the world, it's trade-offs of life.
The other, probably one of the largest revenues in the general fund is the state income tax, which obviously has been one of our biggest problems over the last couple of years. Illinois Municipal League sends out their projections in their magazines every month or so. They're currently projecting that we'll receive about $77.90 per resident, which actually equates to almost about 3.465 million. We have currently only received 9 payments this fiscal year. If we receive at least 11 to the 12 that we would get in a normal year, we will hit about 3.53 million.
And is that based on the census figures? Is that the
Yes.
number they decide on our population?
Yes. Again, it's hard to say. You're kind of at the mercy of the state. They can hold, well, they choose to hold their payments. If we did 12, and last year we got 13 in one fiscal year. This year we've gotten 9 so far. But in the last 2 months of last year, we did receive 3. So I'm still
And
hoping.
is there any movement to change the formula or the amount of that we get from the state?
They have actually projected, it rising slightly, but again, I'm conservative with the
But
numbers.
don't hold your breath.
Right.
Now, we did see the extra payment,
Last year they cut up on one, they sent us
Yeah.
13 payments instead
we're
of.
hopeful that we're gonna end up close to where Jamie's projected, where we projected.
I can tell you for sure, they never have been consistent about sending payments every month. One
And
month we
we're-
might get 2.
We're
then
down
it
as
goes-
of today, is still about 1.3
Correct, that they owe us.
that they owe us. And that's why, just a reminder to all of you, it has been a nightmare the last several years in trying to operate things when we're constantly owed $1.2 to $1.3 million.
And there's no predictability in when we're gonna get it. Every day I check our bank account and the state website to see, are we gonna get a payment today? Like I said, sometimes they send us 2, sometimes they don't send us 1 for 3 months. So it's way too hard to predict for in person, I would imagine.
Do we not have any motel, hotel generating tax at all now?
Well, you understand, one of the biggest ones we had, Lindenwood just bought.
Right. But I mean, it's budgeted zero.
What we had done in the past is,
Shifted into
several
tourism.
years ago, we had shifted 100% to our tourism fund to help pay those expenses, some marketing expenses, and our tourism director. The past couple of years with our financial problems and hotel motel taxes doing well, we decided to split it 50-50. We kept 50% in the general fund and funded the tourism account with the other half. With Lindenwood purchasing the hotel now, we have lost so much that we are not going to be able to continue funding 50-50. To keep the tourism fund going, we're going to have to contribute 100% back as we did several years
And
ago.
Kathleen Lindauer, who's the part-time tourism director for years, she's been there at least probably 15 years. It's amazing how many tour buses she's bringing into the city every month. And the partnership she's created with the Shrine of Our Lady of the Snows, what she's doing for local restaurants, bringing in buses, she has really done a heck of a job. So when Lindenwood bought the hotel a couple weeks ago, Jamie and I talked, and I said, you might as well be realistic until, now I will tell you, I'm back, you know, I can't reveal any more than that, but I'm back trying to solicit a hotel. I think we're gonna have a chance to get a new hotel. My prediction will be in the next year or two, I think we're gonna have something locked in, maybe sooner than not. There's some indicators why. I think that we're back at the table, and I think it's some good news. And I got another meeting coming up real soon that we're gonna work at. Emily and I are pursuing that. But you know, I can't predict when, but I think we're gonna get a new one. I really do. With that said, we shifted the money back that we have to tourism because it was greatly cut once we lost the hotel to Lindenwood. Now, losing the hotel to Lindenwood's a good thing when you look at what they're doing to the campus, so there's some trade-offs.
To move on to the expenses, which obviously if you guys have questions about revenues, I can come back. I hit mainly the big ones. Expenses in the general fund are up about 3.3% from the current 2012 budget. The surplus, obviously, it was mentioned when we passed the 0.25% home rule sales tax that we really needed that money above and beyond the wheel tax to try and put money back into our reserves that have been eaten through with the state income tax problems over the last couple of years. The current budgeted surplus, if everything stays the same, and again, you know, this is always moving figures up until it's passed, is currently right under $174,000. Now, also though, taking into consideration, we have a police contract that has not been settled as of yet. There was money budgeted in the current year for raises for the police officers. Because it's in all likelihood that is not going to happen before the end of April. If it would get settled in next year, we would have to pay, if an arbitrator so chose or however it gets negotiated, back pay for the current year. So the money that was budgeted this year for those salary increases would have to be carried over till next year. So that comes out of this next year budget, and we're projecting about $200,000 to cover those raises. So when you take that into consideration, if we had paid, you know, settled and paid that out this year, we would have about a $400,000 surplus next year.
Which is what we were really shooting for, because we had said all along that the wheel tax was designed to hopefully bring in between 500 to 600. It never quite got there. And like I told Jamie, with just the mere, what we saw early on, we started the budget, the increase in gasoline, and a few things. A few of those budgets everybody was having to amend every other month here. We just said, I said right away, if we could get where we had about a $400,000 savings, or you know, at the end of this whole thing, it would be fabulous. And maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, if revenues come in as projected this year, the state makes their payments, we should have at least a $200,000 surplus this year, which ultimately is that money carried over to next year.
And that's, as you heard her say a few minutes ago, this is all with no increases this year, trying to be sensitive to our citizens. We're starting to see some turns in the economy, but a lot of them are still struggling from a lot of different economy woes, loss of jobs and all kinds of stuff. It's not to say that, you know, we're gonna be able to hold on forever with no increases down the road, but this particular budget shows no increases in anything but that 1/4% sales tax that we passed months ago. So I mean, that's the good news to this right now. We're not raising trash. The people in the Master Sewer Committee, as you talked last month, are gonna have to continue to look at that big sewer project. It's gonna have to have reality, some slight bumps again as we go down the road. It's just common sense, we know that. But if we can hold another year this year to give everybody a little bit more chance to keep some cash in their pockets as best we can, I think we're doing the right thing. And as this budget is prepared before you tonight, there's no plans for any increases at this point.
Also in this budget that's presented before you, there are a few expenses I'm not gonna say that are one-time, but they're not gonna occur every year, but they were added in this year, which also depletes a little bit the surplus that we were expecting. Narrow banding expense, there's about $31,000 included in the general fund, and I am probably the least person able to explain that, but
To go along with our disaster preparedness, and chief, or fire chief probably can, we're mandated and.
By the FA,
Yeah,
with narrow
FCC, is that right? FCC. I get on my, anyway, that the radio situation, the frequencies are changing by law. We have, and one of the big things, if you go back to remember and listening to any of the news with the 9/11, to get everybody so that we can talk to each other and do all the things that are necessary, we were still missing a few radios and some equipment, and this 31,000 in the general fund and about an equal amount out of TIP, right?
no, the narrow banding is just in the general.
Okay, but the other stuff, the equipment,
The EOC
the
communication.
EOC, the extra radios we needed for the Emergency Operations Center for a disaster, so that if we have a disaster and we have to send some department heads out so that they can be on the same wavelength as the police and fire command and different people who go out and do damage assessment for us, et cetera, and do some of these important tasks, we needed to pick up several more radios for them. Was it about 6 more? About six?
Yeah, we're also narrow banding the other radios we're using now, and they're given to other departments in the city.
And that's going to also then eliminate, Chief, the ability for,
That should be done already, isn't it done on the patch?
The patch is off, yes.
the patch is off.
The patch is off on both police and fire. Yeah, the public can't hear those frequencies
So
anymore.
those frequencies no longer should be able to be heard. And that gives a lot more security to a lot of sensitive information that's on the police and fire radios. Okay? That's a one, but this narrow banding, we believe, is a one-time expense. Not that we won't be back with some other form of disaster money, but we're working very, very steadily on trying to continue to be realistic about improving our disaster capabilities. Go ahead.
Another large item that won't be in here every year, but is included in this budget, is a comp plan in the Economic Development Office for $50,000 out of the general fund, about another $50,000 out of all the tips, work on our comp plan. We also, based on department requests, alderman requests, we have researched more of the GIS. We've received estimates that the first year the data should cost about $25,000. We will be paying for that $20,000 out of the general fund, $5,000 out of sewer, as they will be using that data also. With that though, the department heads requested that it'd probably be wise to hire a part-time GIS coordinator till we can kind of gauge our needs. You know, do we need full-time, do we need less? But this current staff is not trained on all the capabilities that we need for the GIS. So also in the budget under the Economic Development Office is $20,000 for a part-time person for the GIS coordinator, as well as $5,000 out of sewer for a part-time, meeting at 20%.
And you know, when you start looking at this, we had to, you know, figure out where you're gonna put these people. Bob Sable, who was recently approved to be a part of the housing team and lead that group, his office will move down to 213 South Illinois with Roger. Emily just last day or two moved over to Jenny Gaines' office on the second floor by my office, which is gonna free up Emily's office, which we believe will be a location for this part-time GIS person. So logistically, we don't have a lot of office space in this city hall, but we were able to free that up in recent days, and that'll make that work for a person to be able to set up shop and work part-time as well.
Who's gonna write the specs for this job?
The staff, we're gonna be meeting with the county, their GIS coordinator, and we're gonna take some leads from what they have in their job descriptions, and then staff is going to, put together the proposal, and we'll have this before we go and advertise such a thing, before Jim Schneider would get it in his department for the proper hiring practices.
So what do you see this person doing day to day?
There's a host of things right now, and that's why I've said I think it needs to be part-time until we get it established. But there's constant requests for projects with the sewer department, the engineering department, and economic development. On any given day, I'd say all of you have some work that this person can do. Am I correct?
Yeah, I'll just answer real quickly. We, all of us really envision this person developing a plan for our city on where we're going with GIS into the future. We know that we need that as a first step. We also see them building our database that we can use not only for our emergency operations center, but also in our departments every day for parcel data, for engineering data, for projects, for waste and sewer projects, for all kinds of things that we have a need for on a daily basis that we're not able to generate right now.
If we do need it now, we have to outsource it, and we're paying. I don't think we ever did quite find out the amount, but some of you stuck out some, and some of it gets tied into projects, but it will ultimately have a savings too, because sometimes some of this stuff we've had to outsource now gets somewhat expensive when you're going out to seek all this stuff.
You'll save more money than outsourcing by having your own person. There's gonna be so much interfacing going on between the various different departments to connect to this system, work out the bugs and everything that they're gonna need to do.
We've never denied it. It's just that a few years ago, when the state first took a whack of readjusting the income tax, and we lost $751,000, and then they started holding back payments, and we were laying people off. I could not justify hiring somebody only to turn around and let one of the last ones hired go before we got the thing stabilized. We're starting to see what I believe is some stabilization. We're not totally all healed from this economy by any means, but I did give my approval to putting in the budget a part-time person, but I think now they have to also then convince all of us what they're going to be doing with that person each and every day that they're here. I think it's got a lot of potential, but we got to walk before we can run.
Okay, so does our current computer system support this kind of software?
Yeah, we have ArcGIS 10 on some of our computers right now, and I for one use it daily. I'm on that program
Yeah,
constantly.
the
So is
engineering
Tim's
department
office.
uses it daily, and we have the software, and we pooled together our resources
Right.
last year with all the departments to get the software so we can get it on everybody's computer. Not every computer is going to be into the design of it, but every computer that's in City Hall will be able to view all of the GIS data.
So we're creating maps and products. We can share them with other people. They can view those and get data from those. They won't have the ability to create them. We want one specific person to do that so that we have a system and, some control over what's happening.
And I think you alluded to what kind of plan. What I envision is maybe a 5-year plan that we could put together with our GIS, part-time GIS person. And, the first year of the plan, we're kind of implementing that. We're hiring part-time. The second part of the plan, or the second year of the plan, it could be to hire a full-time GIS person. But one way to look at this, you want to look at it as a return on your investment, as opposed to how much does this cost.
Oh, no, I'm very excited about it, and I really would like to see the housing and police department, those reports will just, you pull up an address and go, yep, we were there,
see how many times the fire department was there, and you'd be able to see this on a map, and you can kind of do a lot of your planning on what neighborhoods do you need to look at. You can go up there and look at all the red dots, and you can use it as a planning tool to say, hey, we need to get in there. And of course, engineering is going to utilize this program as much as anybody, but it's not just engineering, it's not just economic development, it's the whole city. Every city department can benefit from this.
The cost
And in turn,
efficiencies you're gonna have, Tim, is unlimited, that you'll be able to create out of this.
Answering what I think your question was starting to allude to there, Alderman Holt, we know that our computer system is old. And you heard me say earlier, I do have a vision, we've been talking, we do have future plans, what we hope we can make upgrades to the police department and city hall, etc. But we're gonna have to figure out, and we're trying to now, if we can get TIF 3 extended, hypothetically, where we can get something that's got some more years than just 8 or 9, 10 years left, where we could back some bonds. If we go to do some major renovations, that's the time to do the complete computer overhaul at that time, when you integrate all these things and make some things. There's also some other departments that we're looking at now that might, in the not too distant future, have to be considered doing some slight moving. And it's all part of a bigger, slow plan of trying to better utilize things and look at some other problems, everything from parking to, like we said, handicap accessibility and everything else. There's a lot of things that we're starting to talk about amongst staff that I've been trying to work on in the time I have when I'm not engaged in other things that occupy my time. Okay, go ahead, Jamie.
Obviously, another big item that has been pretty hard to predict, but we're trying our best in this budget, is gas prices, obviously. I've adjusted a few of the departments, even from the first draft that I gave you a month ago, because gas prices have changed since then. Unfortunately, I can't tell you that I'm gonna come back next year at this time and we're gonna have covered everything in the budget, even with those increases. It's so hard to predict. But every department head comes to me with their estimate of what they think they're gonna use in gas next year, and some of them I try and adjust even a little more. Some I take their word for it and know that they'll use it, like the police department, fire department, we can't really control the usage side of it. They gotta go when they gotta go. So it's trying to budget for the increases, but it's so hard to do. And as you can see from kind of my front summary sheet, the police and fire department make up, 57% of the budget. So they're our biggest departments. The other items that have been kind of items of discussion over the past several months that I wanted to make you guys aware of, there is $5,000 budgeted in here for a website. Obviously, that can be adjusted if needed, but until we really get our committee up and going and do the RFPs, it'll be hard to tell if that'll be enough. But I know in the discussions several months ago about the website, other cities had done it. I was told for $3,500 or less, so I figured $5,000 was a good start. Like the mayor mentioned before, there's actually nothing budgeted in any of these budgets for the pool. The pool fund is in there, you can see it, but there's nothing budgeted for next year. There's nothing in any TIFs, because I wanted to wait for the discussion tonight. So if you guys so choose that you want to put money towards a study, like you mentioned before, for a partnership, something like that, you'll need to let me know and see what we can fit in. I also currently estimated increases in utilities. That's kind of the norm. But we are currently working on items to come through the finance committee, hopefully next month, if not next month in May. That will include options for energy improvements. Obviously, we've had an ongoing work with M360 that you guys have approved. They have some ideas for energy improvements that could help reduce our energy costs, as well as our current electricity provider that we buy electricity from on the open market, Glacial, has come to me with options for fixed pricing at a lot lower than we're buying it now, which will save, they're analyzing it now, how much they think we can save, but it's going to be dramatic. So I wanted to estimate increases for next year, as kind of a worst case scenario, but we're hoping that it'll be decreased dramatically, and like I said, that should be coming to you guys in the next month or so.
We also put nothing in here for the proposed video poker or video state gaming for revenue, but we were told again in the last few days that they believe it's going to be up and running by August. If that's the case, if it is legalized now by the state, we will have to consider repealing our ordinance. Otherwise, our businesses will be hampered, and some of them would probably leave the city corporate limits because there's more significant, but it's all tied to direct reporting, taxing, etc. But you're going to see that potentially there is the potential for some revenue for the city once this is up and going, and we would be on board like every other city is planning to do. I can't give you those numbers yet, but we're hearing some, what are guesstimations, but none of that's been included in our revenue stream. So they're saying now by August it's going to be up and running. If that's the case, at least the second half of the year, of the next fiscal year, we could see some revenue stream from the state video or from the gaming as that goes.
Just short answer, do we have to do what the state says on that? I mean, can we say we still don't allow it in the city limits?
You could, but the difference going to be now that it's legal by the state is, I would imagine you're going to have your local businesses that are going to just throw a tizzy. You know, one thing when it was against the law, and people weren't reporting it for taxes, and some people went to prison and everything else. But when it becomes just like bingo or anything else, once it becomes legalized in the state, and then we would be then penalizing our businesses if we said they couldn't take part of it. The limit's going to be. Well, exactly, because you're going to have restaurants and bars that are going to say, I'm not staying in Belleville, I'm not coming to Belleville, I'm leaving Belleville, because their take on five machines, every liquor license, this is based on liquor licenses, every liquor license would be allowed a maximum of 5 machines. Their take on 5 machines, from the numbers that have been shared with me, unbelievably significant. Now, how long can that last? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't want Jamie the following year to program in, if we approve all this, I wouldn't want to bet the farm on these numbers, because I would think people eventually, but we would have to think long and hard about not approving it, because I think our business community, our bars and restaurants that have liquor and that are already calling and asking questions, I think they're going to, if it's all legal and it's all documented, it's all tied to phone line reporting, I think they will be extremely upset.
Total fines and forfeitures, is this tow fees?
Not all of it, but it includes a good portion of it is the tow fees and the court fines that we collect, yes.
What is the tow fee number that we got last year?
We had last year, what was it, Jamie, 100 and...
I can tell you, we're on track this year to collect about $275,000 from
Yeah, but he was asking for that. What was
last year was $186,000.
Well, we had a little break in the action until we got some interpretation taken care of, right?
Yeah, so this year we're on track to probably end the year between $250,000 and $275,000. Projected next year about $310,000 with not having that break in the.
Is that reflecting our increase in our fees too on the towing and that?
Yes, that went into effect a year ago. Other than that, those were kind of my major points I wanted to hit from the general fund. Also, kind of in regards to the last topic, the broadcasting of the city council meetings, because it's unknown right now, I did program $6,000 in the budget for equipment purchases, as we probably will need to buy at least a couple cameras. But again, that's
There is a grant available from the charter we're going to meet and talk about. There's some grant money that we could, and that's what Linda is going to explain, so we'll be having some meetings and try to obtain that, but I told her we agreed to put a minimal amount in there just for something for starters.
so that, okay, those are the main points about the general fund. Are there any questions right now? Obviously, you might come up with questions later on. Feel free to email, call, come see me, whatever you wish.
Okay. Is there any questions on that?
Hold on, I'm just sorry, go ahead.
Mosquito treatment?
We've been primarily, guys jump in, we've been primarily just using larvicide, right? We haven't been using the defogger, Jared, at all, have we really, Chuck?
Upon request.
Upon request, but it's becoming a little bit more, there's some issues, I think, raised with some of the health things and some of the people, like they don't request it, so and it's very expensive too, the chemicals are extremely expensive.
Very expensive.
So we backed off it last year, we're, it's become a thing that's,
It's not really effective.
well, it's questionable. Some people will swear by it, a lot of people will swear at it. But it's one of those things that, if you think it's doing your subdivision some good and we're not doing it, then they're getting mad, it just, so.
Oil and chip?
It's psychological.
Oil and chip, right now with the motor fuel budget has been pretty much cut back to almost little to nothing this year.
The oil and chip is not in the budget.
That's why I said little to nothing.
But that was done at a time when it was in the middle of the winter and we didn't know what kind of winter we were gonna have too. I haven't revisited to see where the funds are, but it's possible that it could come back.
Here's the situation. We made a conscious effort, this council, 2-3 years ago, to refix 37th Street, and it wasn't in a TIF. And we had to do almost that whole project out of the motor fuel. So that was a big challenge, and that was in Ward 3, but it's a very used thoroughfare, and it was a mess. So that was primarily had to be done, to get done. We're gonna run into the same thing now with McClintock. Even though, thank God, we got some grant money, to get that done, we're gonna have to really hit the motor fuel hard. That's why we were looking at tightening our belts so much in motor fuel, because virtually none of McClintock is TIF eligible. Now, the one thing I did come up with that we're gonna look at, not this year, but probably next year, Muscuda Avenue, parts of it is really bad for needing some repaving. Some of it's just a washboard, and we've had a lot of complaints, and we have a lot of streets, don't get me wrong, but we look at streets that Tim's constantly doing traffic counts, and we're looking at streets that are high traffic count, entrances into the city, perception. But we found out Muscuda Avenue, a big part of it is in the CDBG. So we think the year after next, we're going to be able to use the CDBG funds to get Muscuda Avenue improved. So that wasn't, because that was one I was out here going, I don't know how the heck we're going to do it. Once again, with motor fuel, we're backed up and we're committed for so long, and we can't keep every year taking a big road project out of motor fuel when we've got oil and shipping that has to be done. So maybe this year, since, cross your fingers, we've had a mild winter. There's always a downside. We're off a little bit on utility tax this year because of the mild winter. But if we can keep that big salt barn full to the gills, and all we gotta do is throw some salt in the dome out there at Raw Heights Road, the smaller dome, we're gonna save money in the budget there. We might be able to, hypothetically have a little trade-off.
Alderman Hart?
I'm sorry, I wasn't finished.
Oh, okay.
Central purchasing. I really hung up on paying 5 different tire companies and 5 different hardware stores week after week after week. Are we working towards that?
Well, one of the things about central purchasing, there's 2 aspects. One, Jamie would have to have a little bit more time, or a little bit more staff to be able to concentrate on both investigating the pros, cons, and the method, as well as we have to have some space. Right now, we are short on garage space. We have on any given day, we have at least 18 vehicles sitting outside at the street department that bothers me.
I'm not understanding how that.
Space, you have to have space. If you're gonna buy stuff in volume and like we
No, I just want you to have a contract with one tire company, so that when the fire department needs it, or the streets needs it, or whoever, that's where they go.
Well, and we try to buy locally, but some of these particular vehicles that come have certain times at certain, we have to go to a different one for a different piece. I mean, some of the equipment we have, because of either warranties or product, is very specific to certain consumers we're doing business with.
Right.
So, so we're studying that, but we have not yet, And a big part, I will tell you, we do not have the money to, I listened to all of you, and we're trying to part-time GIS person, which I heard was a priority. Central purchasing is up, we're still gonna work towards. Can I give you a date when we're gonna get there? Right now, no.
It is in our ordinances.
Well, there's a lot of things in ordinances we probably need to get busy and adjust or change.
Okay, this is my last question.
Because in the ordinance book, the police chief's still responsible to clean the city council chambers.
That's not ordinances, that's charter. City court.
City court has not yet, we have had numerous conversations. Our city attorneys are not convinced that it's going to be of savings and of indeed being more efficient at this point. We've had, believe me, we've been studying it. We've
Well,
been-
not to make it sound like our city attorneys kind of old. New things happen, I'm not sure they've looked at all the angles.
Well, I will tell you right now, we are blessed to have the knowledge of the two city attorneys we have. They save us an enormous amount of money from their experience each and every year, and each and every month in most cases, so.
But I've asked about this for years and years, and I keep,
Well, not years and years, you've been on the council since May.
but this issue has come up from the public multiple times.
And we have looked at it, we've been to several cities, we've looked at it, and we have still to the point, and now with Jenny changing, Bob Sable will be on board May 7th. We'll no doubt sit down and start to study it again and take a look at it. But I will tell you, it's not an easy, quick, let's go to city court.
I
There's a
understand
lot
that,
involved.
But I feel frustrated that I don't feel that this policymaking body has been included in the discussions.
Well, I don't know if that's, certainly entitled to be paid.
Alderman Hart?
One question, one request. First question is regards to the phone expense on the department. I thought we changed to Windstream where we were supposed to start realizing the savings from that switch.
The most dramatic savings you'll see in the administration budget, I believe it's line 0150552000, goes from about 170,000 this year to 95.6 next year, which I actually believe is quite conservative. We'll probably spend quite a bit less than that. Some of the lines that are with AT&T had to stay with AT&T. Either they're special types of lines that can't be bundled in with the rest that's going to Windstream, or they're still under contract. But the most significant savings that they came and talked to us about is in the administration side of the budget, because that pays for the bulk of the phone bills.
Okay. And my request is you provided a breakdown of other professional services in the sales tax TIF and TIF number 3. Is it possible that you could also provide that breakdown of other professional services for the rest of the departments?
I'll try this.
That's it.
All right. Any other questions? I'd like to entertain a motion to set the public hearing meeting for the fiscal 2013 budget on April 9th, 2012 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers, here in the council chambers, with the regular finance committee meeting to follow.
What the ninth?
April 9th, it'll be 7 o'clock here in the council.
So that's
And
not
then-
interfering with police and fire?
No, it isn't. And then the regular council meeting will follow after. Excuse me, the regular finance committee
It's
meeting.
a Monday night.
It'll be a Monday night,
It's your
correct?
regular finance meeting in April, and what we would do is, at the end of the public hearing, when all questions have been answered, the finance meeting would then officially start.
We'll officially start.
Motion.
Motion by Alderman Elmore, and second by Alderman Hayden. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Budget amendments. I need motion.
Motion to receive and file budget.
File the budget amendments. I have a second. Second by Alderman Martinson. Discussion. Roll call of Alderman. Meyer. Anderson. Carpenter. Hayden. Martinson. Elmore. And the chairman votes aye. All right. We have, I need a motion to receive and file the revenue sources. So moved by Alderman Meyer. Second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? So I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Second by Alderman Hood. Thank you.
You're not going back upstairs, we should know.
Chuck Schaefer, who's been.
Mayor? You take off tomorrow? No, I'm gonna take off Friday. That means, I had to